Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CAST webinar on Previs to Performance, Streamlining Your Touring Workflow. My name is Nick. I am a product manager here at CAST, and I'm very, very excited for today's guest speaker, Zakk Bosserman. Zakk is a lighting designer and programmer at Retinal Abuse, and he has previously worked with various artists such as Sheryl Crow, Chase Rice, and he is now the LD for Nate Smith, who actually recently came into town in Toronto for a nice visit. So very, very excited about today's webinar. Today's webinar is indeed a live session. So if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to use the chat or Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the Teams interface to type in your questions. We'll continue monitoring those throughout the webinar and answer your questions either during the webinar itself, or we're going to reserve a Q&A section at the end as well. So feel free to keep typing them away. Now, before I hand it off to Zakk for the presentation, for any one of you that are joining us for the very first time, CAS has been a solution maker for the entertainment industry for 31 years now. And we have two main products. There's WYSIWYG and Blacktracks. WYSIWYG is a lighting design and pre-visualization application that allows you to pre-visualize your design ahead of going on site. And Blacktracks is our real-time, low latency tracking solution that allows you to essentially track all of your performers as well as objects on stage in real time, integrating with various production elements such as lighting, media, audio, and even PTZ cameras. So as you can see here, CAS is not new to the block. We have years of innovative experiences as well as solving problems that are in the industry in making your workflow easier and faster. So the main focus today, of course, WYSIWYG. The name of WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. It is an all-in-one solution that provides you with a tool to essentially go from point A all the way to actually deploying, which is what Zakk's going to be showing you today, how he uses this tool to go from computer screen to actually deploying the shows in the real world. And this tool is for everyone, meaning whether you are focused on drafting and pre-planning the show, you're creative using WYSIWYG to creatively design your performances, or if you're a power user that's connecting WYSIWYG to whether it's a lighting console or a media server for real-time pre-visualization. This tool is perfect for you in any of those environments, whether it's a TV set or a theater or even a concert arena touring production. WYSIWYG is known for its photorealistic rendering engine. And as you can see in this example here, on the there's one rendering from WYSIWYG at the top for both the Ed Sheeran tour and another performance, and below is an actual image from the performance itself. So it's truly what you see is what you get. WYSIWYG 2025 is also now available, and we've also started doing monthly updates as well. So on top of new particle effects, real people, you're now getting monthly library updates, as well as features and improvements included on a monthly basis, which is part of what creating and doing cloud licensing allows us to do and achieve. Cloud licensing also allowed us to let you essentially subscribe to WYSIWYG on a monthly basis as well, using it for projects and billing it directly for the project and that duration as well. So once again, thank you all very much for joining us today. I'm going to hand it over to Zakk. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop it in the chat and Q&A section. Go for it, Zakk.
All right. What's going on, everybody? As Nick said, my name is Zakk Bosserman. I am currently the lighting director for Nate Smith. I just quick, background on me, I started off life as a sound guy. I went to school for audio engineering, and through the process of working in live audio, discovered the world of lighting, and I fell in love. So over the last 10, 15 years or so, I've been exclusively doing lighting. And I got into WYSIWYG in 2018. I was contracted to be the crew chief and primary lighting tech for a band called OAR, based out of kind of Baltimore, Ohio, New York. It depends on who you ask at any given time where they're based out of. I was the kind of overall tech. The lighting director was also the tour manager, and was primarily there to be the guy who knows how the songs work. So my job was to handle all the technical side. So I got a subscription to just at the time, I think it was a 90-day trial for WYSIWYG Perform, kind of learned what I need to learn to make it go, and we ended up here. What we're going to talk about today is kind of what my workflow is, how I use WYSIWYG every day. So every single day I'm doing something in WYSIWYG to work on my show that is going to happen on the weekends. I work in country music now. Primarily our job is weekend stuff. So I'll get on the bus on Thursday. We'll have a show Friday, Saturday, and either Sunday, and then I'm home immediately following. So that Monday through Wednesday period is when I'm typically doing all of my prep work for the shows coming up ahead. And that's the part we want to talk about, is all the prep work. So we're going to jump into that now. And okay, so the biggest thing that I run into, and the biggest thing that's the most important to me over the course of my time working in shows, is paperwork. It sounds silly, but paperwork is the bedrock of everything we're doing. If I have a very good plot, I'm having a good day. If I'm having a very bad plot, I have a bad day. So sometimes we get something like this. Sometimes we get this beautiful drawing. This is Watershed 2024 and 2025. This was designed by Outlaw Lighting and Billy Clare, who happens to be a WYSIWYG power user. He's a champion. Sometimes we get wonderful stuff like this, where I get beautiful plots, or in this case, he was just able to send me his WYSIWYG file. And when I see plots and paperwork that look like that, I am a very happy LD. It's very easy to work. It's very easy to get my show ready to go. But sometimes, this is where the problems are. Sometimes I get this. This is an actual plot I've received. It is a photo of something somebody drew on the back of a piece of paper. It's hard to tell what things are because it's a photo of a piece of paper. But there's squares, circles, and X's. The squares apparently were spot fixtures. The circles were wash fixtures, and the X's were blinders. I don't know why they did that, but that's what they did. Sometimes that's all you get. So the thing we have to look out for is what we can do to make even something that looks like this into something that's a full, completed show. There's a slight issue that goes along with that every now and again. As you imagine, I'm touring for a country artist. We have a lighting team. On my lighting team, there's me. I'm the lighting director. I'm the guy who pushes the buttons, monitors the time code, and I'm there to know the tracks and know the songs in case something gets totally screwed up and I have to improvise. On my show, I'm very fortunate that I have a lighting tech. My lighting tech is a fantastic dude. It's also me. That makes my day a little bit interesting because now I've got to cover two roles. Well, I also have a crew chief, I have a programmer, I have a head rigger on some shows, and I have a WYSIWYG draftsman, or a CAD draftsman in some cases. That's also me. And so my role becomes from being the lighting director to the lighting guy. I'm in charge of everything that has to do with lights over the course of our day. And that means one thing, and really one thing only. I got to go fast. One of the things we're going to talk about here is kind of how a normal festival day works. The artist I work for, we're very much on the rocket ship going up towards headlining arenas, headlining stadiums, all that stuff. Right now, we're in the kind of upper B market. So we're doing a lot of stuff that is direct support slots on a festival. We're the direct support act on an arena tour. We just wrapped up the entirety of 2024 opening for Jason Aldean. So I'm going to give you kind of our general festival schedule. This is not every festival, but this is kind of where the industry lives in terms of what you see as a support act on a festival. For many, if not most of you guys, you're not going to be jumping in from I'm a guy in the shop, or I'm just starting to learn, to I'm the LD of massive arena act with 3 consoles in front of you and all this time. So I want to give you guys a real world example of what that is. So this is kind of the average festival schedule for what we do. At about 9 o'clock, 9:30, we're unloading our truck. We'll have from 10 to 11 a.m. to load in. That means pretty much everything. So get the instruments on stage, get the stage decks built, put the lights in place, get everything plugged in, get everything going that we have to do. Changeover is our half hour, sometimes less. That's usually a half hour from the band before us to get off stage and us to get on stage and be ready. We're going to talk about changeover in a minute. And then we play our show from 8 to 9 p.m. 9 p.m. to 9:10 is our time to get off stage. 10 minutes is generous. For those of you who haven't worked in the country world, the time they expect us to, from we are playing our show to we are off stage and the headliner is ready to go, the average time we're expected to see is 7 minutes. Sometimes as little as 5, depending on the artist you're playing with. And then from 9:10 to whenever is when we're loading out. That's when we're packing up all the gear backstage, loading the truck, doing all the things we do. So we're going to be talking about the changeover time. Changeover time is everything. That is a half hour of where you have access to the rig in the dark with the ability to haze. Those 3 things are often not something you get to see when you're during your load-in time. That load-in time, I'm trying to make sure that the power works, that the hazer fluid is filled, everything is good, that we've got connection to, at least from my data side, to the rig, because oftentimes I'm not going to be able to access the event. We have to be done at 11 a.m. because the first act has to get put on stage and sound check and everything they've got to do to open the doors at 11:30 to play a show to start playing at noon. So that time is where everything matters. That time is when we're confirming our data. It's when we're updating our presets. It's when we're confirming our time code. It's when we're having our spot meeting. Is any of this starting to click in? You have a lot to do. This is when we're updating our set list. This is when you're solving any problems, figuring out anything that may have gone wrong. Is your patching correct? Is there what we like to call a high impedance air gap into something in your rig? For those of you who haven't worked on the technical aspects of things, a high impedance air gap means you forgot to plug it in. So for me, oftentimes that means screaming into the void, because I don't know what's going on, because I have to push through 20,000 people if I'm going to get from front of house back to the stage in order to get onto the stage to solve any problem and then make it back by my 8 p.m. set time. So a lot of times it's a pretty busy day. So that's when you're drinking water, you're having a breath, you're going, okay, we are ready to go. Whatever you need to do to get yourself in the mindset to put on a good show. All of this means the more prepared you are, the better your show is going to look. As much as you can do to have your show ready before you even get onto the property, the better your life is going to be. And so for that, in our case, we're using WYSIWYG. WYSIWYG is a fantastic tool for me. My biggest thing is I like having everything in one place. I don't want to jump between a CAD software, a live previs software, a software to do my paperwork, a software to do anything else that may need to get checked on before my show. So everything happens for me inside of WYSIWYG. Now, what we're going to talk about WYSIWYG is things that WYSIWYG does really, really well. Nick kind of gave us the brief rundown when he was doing the intro to this webinar. Realistic renders of lighting in the environment, millimeter perfect fixture placement, exact documentation of your show. You can export a patch to a console if you want. You have absolutely perfect focus points. So you're able to see the show exactly the way you're going to see it. Here's the catch. Here are things you are not going to see when you're going ahead of a festival show. Realistic renders of lighting environment, millimeter millimeter perfect fixture placement, exact documentation of the show, exportable patch to your console, and focus point perfection. As good as WYSIWYG is at doing those things, we have to take our show into the real world. And in the real world, as far as festivals go, and smaller shows, smaller venues that may not have access to a great computer that can run WYSIWYG, that can generate good plots, that can generate good paperwork, maybe the lighting guy doesn't care all that much. Maybe they just never made it a priority and it's never been a problem for them. Maybe their show or their venue or their rig is so small that you can just say it out loud. Hey, we got 2 trusses. There's our 2 spots on it all. It's all one universe. Upstage starts at 1. Sometimes that's as much plot and as much lighting advance as I'm ever going to see. So we're going to do as much as we can within the scope of what's real. And for me, that changes my goals. So the goals for my show now, for when I'm using WYSIWYG, are correct fixture counts, making sure I have the right number of fixtures on a given truss, an accurate patch, knowing what the fixture modes are, knowing what the actual DMX addresses are, so that I can walk into a show having already patched everything, load up my file, and with maybe a couple of tweaks here and there for something I missed or something that got changed since the plot I was given was generated, we're good to go. Relative positions and relative effects. Those are 2 very different things from knowing exactly where things are. We don't know where things are in reality. Even if we had, even if we ended up with Billy Clare's plot that looks exactly like this and looks absolutely beautiful, we may not know when we're building this plot that the Sacco fan out, we thought we were getting a full fan out that has 6 10-foot tails, but all they had left because of some other show they're doing, all they have is little staggers. So to make something work, they had to nudge a fixture 1.5 inches off a cord of truss to make it fit. We don't know if they had to move a fixture because we thought this show was going to be on 5 8-foot GTs, and now it's on 4 10-foot GTs. So that changes where things are positioned. Anything like that is going to mess up your positions. So instead of going for exact, we're going for relative. Are they pointed in the right direction? Are they pointed in a way that makes sense for the show? So when I get on site, I have to pull them up maybe only briefly, if at all, to where I can go, okay, the one that is supposed to be down at the band is down at the band. The one that's supposed to be up way high is up way high. There's not, if there's one fixture that's way, helter-skelter over here, we can correct that one thing rather than have to go through and redo every single fixture. You're going to find that there's always a couple of things you have to do day to day. You're always going to have to double check, like if you have a downstage center position. The other thing we don't know in most of our plots, and that may not even be the case on this one from Billy, we don't know the Z-axis. We don't know how high up the truss is. Sometimes you're going to get in a venue where the trusses are hung at, 14, 16, 18 feet. Sometimes you're going to get into a venue or a show where everything got moved in order to suit the headliner on the day of the show. When you're headlining a festival or a show like that, you get a lot of leeway to do things like move your truss, position things. So, they may have had to pull that motor down 1.5 feet to match up so it looks right with an LED wall. We don't know these things. So instead of going for exact positions, we're looking for everything relative. Same thing for our effects. That's mostly having to do with your programming and what you run in your console. But for us, it works out the same way. I want to make sure that my effects look right when I get on site. So I don't have to be trying to make everything perfect in that half hour. I don't have time for it. 5 minutes of that time is taken up by talking to the spotlights. 5 minutes of that is being made up for by, oh no, the sound guy forgot to run me the time code line. We got to go find an XLR. So we have to think primarily at the bottom here about speed. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a live demo of what I'm calling a generic festival lighting package. This is something that I've made. This is actually the plot I use for Nate Smith. This is our fly date plot. So when we are given a corporate show or something where I get to determine what the lights are up in the air, we typically send them this. This is a quick drawing. It's not meant to be overcomplicated. It's meant to go, here are the lights I want. Here are the modes and patch I want for them, and here's roughly where I want them to be. Everything that you see here, when I send this out to a venue or a production company or a production manager, is fluid. It's flexible. It's changeable. That's the idea with it. So the idea is that we're able to take everything we see here and go, okay, this is close. What do we do to make it work? And that may be we have to change the actual fixtures to make up for something in their inventory. They may not have enough beam fixtures to do what I want. That's fine. That's part of the process of working through all of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to open WYSIWYG, and we're going to look at this plot, which for those of you watching now, I'll talk my way through. For those of you watching later, we'll find a way to actually upload this so you guys can have it. I'm happy to give it away. I feel like I'm not paid for my plots and my paperwork. I'm paid for being able to load in a show efficiently, run it well, be kind to people, and leave a good impression on the show when we're done. So I have no problem giving away my files to you guys. We will make this available in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so we're going to jump into WYSIWYG. This is the scariest WYSIWYG window you will ever see. This is a blank page. I am terrified of a blank page. Blank pages scare me. So I tend to do a lot of templates and building and making sure that I've got enough of what I need before we get started. So for example, if I had something like a clone show, this is my clone show. There's a lot going on here because my show's programmed to handle anything from a small club to something as big as a watershed. What we're going to be looking at is just this festival. So we're going to pull up this plot here. I know it's a little zoomed out right now. We're going to take care of that so that you guys can see what's going on here. What I always start with, because I did not come from a traditional lighting technical background. I didn't come out of technical theater. I didn't come out of lighting design school. I didn't do any of that. I just kind of did it based on intuition for the most part when I was learning. For me, that means I always think I'm looking at the plot on a piece of paper. I start at the top left. So I know that a lot of you guys are going to be thinking your numbers are all backwards. That is the whole benefit of using CAD software. It's up to you. Whatever works best for your workflow is what's going to work best. But we're going to start with the upstage truss here. This is the upstage truss that I use. We'll kind of zoom in. The way I laid it out is I've got in red here, I've got spot fixtures. In green are my beam fixtures. And then here in purple are my wash fixtures. Everything is numbered in a specific way that makes sense for me and my show. I've got some LED stuff happening down here in the 400s. Those are GLP JDC ones if I'm lucky enough to have those on my show. And then I've got I've got blinders. In this case, I think it's DTW 700s violation. Doesn't matter because it's kind of whatever I'm going to get is whatever I'm going to get. But this is what we're going to start with. This is going to be the truss we're going to build, and we're going to start from absolute zero on it. So we're going to go back into WYSIWYG and get started there. All right. So we know we're doing an upstage truss, so we know we're going to be somewhere in this region of our show. I know a lot of you guys live and die by layers. I do as well. So I'm going to talk my way through what the layers are here as we go through things. So in this case, I have a layer that's built that's called upstage truss. I'm going to grab a truss out of the library here. So I'm going to grab a GT truss. I'm going to grab a 8-footer here. GT 96, double click, and we're installing. I'm going to set this at 24 feet on the Z-axis, and I'm going to build right to the edge of this stage here. This is a 40-foot by 30-foot WYSIWYG kind of generic riser that I use as a stage. No other reason for why I use the riser versus anything else. It just makes sense when I'm prevising. The size is largely an average of what I'm going to see day to day. For example, on a stage line SL320, that's a 40 by 40. But then I'm also in clubs where it's, maybe 32 by 26. And then there's a weird cutout on the side to make room for an ADA elevator or anything like that. This is all very generic. So we've got our trusses here. And now we're just going to place our fixtures. We'll start on the layer I have here that is flown spots in my Flight 8 package. And we're going to grab that. So for this, I'm using the Ayrton Camson. So we're going to grab a Camson. We're going to grab a Camson. If you notice, I have not yet talked about the modes for the fixtures, the modes for whether they're the right DMX channels. I get into that later. What I want to do first is just place the fixtures. Now, if we go back and we look at our plot, we know that this first light is going to be somewhere towards the on-stage side of the middle gap in that truss. So that's what we're going to look at first. We're going to grab that and we're going to place it here. Actually, in fact, I'm going to correct myself because I have made a boo-boo. We're going to kill this. And I'm going to grab this truss because this truss needs to be a 10-footer based on the way I've drawn it. So I'm going to grab out of my shortcuts, which I've been using religiously on and off forever. And we're going to grab 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to make sure that's in the right place. So my X is going to be -20. That's my starting position. My Y is 24. My Z, we're going to take a wild guess and call it 14 feet. That seems like something fun to do. So we're going to grab our flown spots, grab our Camsons. Now we're back where I know I need to be. We're going to put one here. We're going to put one here. There's 6 on the truss. So what I'm going to do is make some room in the middle for some stuff. Notice I am not worrying right now about fixture placement being exact. I am not sweating that at all. I just want to get them on my truss. I'm going to look at beams now. These are Roby Mega Points. I probably will never see a Mega Point used as a beam fixture because those are not the shows I tend to get to work on. Most of the time I'm seeing like, old Sharpies and all kinds of mess. But in order to program the most effective show possible, I want to use everything I can. So that's going to be these guys here. We're going to place them here. And now we're going to go to the flown washes layer. And I'm going to grab my wash fixture, which is a Roby LED beam 350. We're going to grab that. Again, I'm not worried about the mode right now. I'm just worried about what the fixture is. So we're going to grab, we're going to grab, we're going to grab, we're going to grab, we're going to grab. In all these gaps, I've left enough room to put 4 of everything. So now we've got 8 total on the truss, which is exactly what I want. Now's the part where I want to pay attention to fixture placement in a relative sense. I'm told this is where it's going to be. I need to get things at least looking good for when I'm prevising. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the edit for the truss. I'm going to grab all these fixtures and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-D, which is to distribute fixtures along a hang structure, in this case on my truss. So I'm going to grab just inside this cord of truss and then just inside this cord of truss on this side. There we go. Everything looks like it's in the right place. So now it's evenly spread out across my truss. I'm not worried about exactly where, because like we said, we're only talking about the relative positions. Now we're going to look at my LED fixtures. For this, I'm using a JDC1. You're going to notice I'm not using the design mode. I'm using the actual JDC1. That is because I'm not really looking in design mode. Design mode is a wonderful tool that WYSIWYG has, but it doesn't affect me in the day-to-day side. When I'm prepping a design for a client, I'm doing it all day long. It's a whole lot easier to build a look in here in WYSIWYG than it is to build the whole show in WYSIWYG, then connect your console to it, program a look for it. Because I don't know if the design is going to get approved. So I'm not going to put all that time into getting positions, getting all the colors to be correct. I'm going to do it here quick and dirty. But for now, we're just going to hop into the JDC1. I'm going to change my hang position to hang position 2, and we're going to place these fixtures something resembling where they said they're going to be. So here, 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 and here. And now we're going to do my blinders, which are the DTW 700, DTW blinder 700 IP. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to place them in different places. depending on what the show file says. So we're going to do here, here, and here. Cool. So now we've got this taken care of. We got to work a little bit with these blinders and these LEDs to make them a little bit more making sense. So we're going to do that now. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to disable viewing of the spots, washes, and beams because I'm not working with them right now. I just want to work with these. And I'm going to change to an isometric view because this is where everything that's important for me is happening. I'm hitting Alt-Enter to pull up the properties window of the fixtures. And now here's where we get started. I'm going to start with the DTW blinder, and I'm going to spin it out. I'm pretty sure having, nope, 90 degrees outwards is going to turn it out towards the show. And then I want to tilt it down. See if that, yep, there you go. I tilted it down 30 degrees, somewhere between 30, 45, whatever works best for you is going to work great. We're going to take the JDCs. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to spin them negative 90. That didn't work again. 90. And then I'm going to leave these pointed straight out because these are JDC ones and they tilt. So it doesn't really make a difference. And more to the point, I'm not using JDC ones necessarily for all the tilting they can do when they're up in a flown truss. Typically, I'm going to point them at the audience or down where I need them, and then they're going to stay that way. Certain shows I may have 2 or 3 positions for them, but in the case of this, I do not. So now we've got them placed outwards. We're going to go back up top, and we're going to do the same thing we did before, which is Control-Shift-D to pick a spot where these make sense. Let's say 17 feet on the ruler up top. Let's see if 17 feet works. It sure does. And now they're placed in an even spot. I'm going to open back up with the flown washes just to see everything happen here. And now I have a plot that's roughly what the plot on the show is supposed to be. So if we go back to our plot and we look at this truss more or less lines up with what we have built in WYSIWYG. There's not a ton of, I try not to give myself as much wiggle room. So like, as you can see in the plot, I've messed with what the clamps are so that they stick out an appropriate distance. I'm not worrying about that when I'm going through prepping a show. I'm just trying to slam it home, get it done. So now's the part where we're going to start looking at modes and making sure everything is correct. And this is when we pull up our patch list. So in our patch list here, the lighting designer, me, has been very kind to me, lighting director, and has done all the modes and patches and positions and everything so that we have a very good resource to work with. So we're going to start by looking at our patch. Hit Q to pull up the quick fixture tool. I'm starting off my patch. I know that from looking at this patch over here that the camsons begin at, actually, we're going to do the first thing first, which is select them all. Select all these camsons. We're going to hit Alt-Enter, make sure we're in the right mode. And this is standard camson. That is correct. We're going to look at our mega points. We're going to look at the modes on that. That says mode 2. Mode 2 is correct for what I'm trying to do. We're going to look at our LED beam 350s. In options, that is in mode 1. I'm going to change this to mode 3. We're going to look at the JDCs next. I typically go in order: spots, beams, washes, LED, blinders. And then anything else that's the rest of my show will follow after that, but that's the way my head processes. So we're going to open up the options for that, and that's in 23 channel. I want this in 68 full blast mode. And then the blinders. Selecting the blinders means I'm going to pick 4 cell. That just means there's 4 channels to the fixture. Each channel is just a dimmer for that 1 cell. Okay. So now we know we've got the modes correct. We're going to hit Q, select our patch. We're going to start with 1.1, which is the patch that we were given. And the way this patch is laid out, this patch is kind of working one half of each truss as a universe, and then all the things around the front are a different universe. This is pretty common because we have all these fixtures here lined up together. They're going to go 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 with short DMX cables. Then you're going to have a second universe that's going to start over here, and it's going to have these short DMX cables across the way. LED fixtures, such as the JDC1, such as the Color Strike M, they take up a lot of channels in your DMX universe. So what happens a lot is that these guys and the blinders, which are usually the simplest fixtures, they'll get grouped together because they're going to be on a different cord of truss. So if we look at the truss, we have all these guys hanging in the back here, and then all these guys are way out in front, and they're hung from a different place. So we want to treat them that way because typically when you're designing a show like this, it's going to make it easier for the techs to patch everything together. So in this case, all of these fixtures are universe 1. All these fixtures here are universe 2. And then everything across the front here is universe 3. We're going to start with patch 1.1. And I know I'm going to start with these guys. And then I'm going to go straight to the beams, which are my green fixtures. And now I'm going to do all of my washes. And then we're going to hit Q again to pull that menu back up. And we're going to start at 2.1. And we're going to do the same processes. 1, 2, 3. Then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is that universe patched out. Now we're going to look at universe 3, which is our LEDs and blinders. The way this is patched on the paperwork says the JDCs go first. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. The last one was 3, 285 at 4. You can be looking as you go. You can look either by hovering over to see that you've already patched something, or you can look. It's very hard to tell on this window because I've got a big screen, but on my cursor says next fixture patch 3.289. So you're able to see as you go what the next fixture is going to be. I'm going to hit F to finish doing the quick fixture tool. And so now we can look, and this truss is built exactly the way it shows in the plot. I skipped the fixture number on the WYSIWYG drawing that I'm making. The reason for that is I'm not worrying about it in WYSIWYG right now. WYSIWYG is a tool to get me to, I'm putting a show together. I'm not necessarily worrying about, do I have everything picture perfect in my paperwork for this show? I'm the LD for this show. It's going to be my show file, and I'm not doing the show on WYSIWYG. I'm doing the show with a lighting console and a rig that's hanging in the air. So I'm going to worry more about the things that matter most to putting the show in front of the people that have paid to come see it. Let's go back to WYSIWYG. There are a mid-stage truss and a downstage truss. To save us all time, I have already gone ahead and done all those. So if we're looking at our full show here, we look at it in front view. We have our upstage truss here of everything. We have our mid-stage truss, and we have our downstage or front of house truss of everything that's going to light up our act. And that is everything I do in WYSIWYG to get myself ready to go. I'm going to move this over to the console side, but what we're going to be looking at is the live mode. So I'm going to set up live mode, which
and just before you jump in there as well,
yeah.
I just wanted to chime in because we've talked about this quite a bit, and you've shown me your process in person when you come and visit in town as well.
Yeah.
This is what you do every city you go to on your tour.
Every single
on the laptop, on the bus. And this is a simulation of what that process is like, right? Sometimes
Correct.
you get a very nice plot, sometimes you don't, and you basically rough in the best guesstimate possible as to what that plot's going to look like. And in order for you to essentially do what you're about to show and demonstrate next, is to verify that your design is essentially, good to go when you do have to hit the ground running.
Exactly. So like Nick said, this is what I'm doing every single day, or at least for every show I'm doing. I'll typically do this on the Monday or Tuesday that week ahead. I try and do it as fast as I can because I'm on show pay and I want to make sure my show is correct, but I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours tweaking everything just that little bit perfect in previs when again, I'm not showing it to my audience in previs. Previs is for me the approximation of the process. Is the programming going to work the way it's supposed to? Is the show that I intended, the feeling that I intended, the emotions that we can create with a lighting package and with the concert lighting, is that going to translate well when I look at it in person? So yes, I do this for absolutely every show. I do this particularly for every venue I go into, because in the United States at the club and small theater level, there's usually 1 to 3 venues per city. So I may not have to build this every time if I know, hey, it's the House of Blues in Orlando. I've been there, coming up on 10 times in my career. I have this already prevised. I have this done. So then I can just import the previs I built for that venue from 2 years ago. And as long as nothing major has changed, and as a part of our process, I'm on emails with the production managers and lighting directors and designers for those venues. If the venue is the same and it hasn't changed much, if those House of Blues ACL lights are still in place, because that's a House of Blues, commonality, if they're still there, awesome. Then I know that my show is still going to work, and all I have to do is the secondary part of this process. I'm going to move myself over here to this side of the screen, because what we're looking at is a combo of Grand MA2 and WYSIWYG. I'm still using Grand MA2. Number of reasons for it. One, when this show got programmed, we were still using MA2 consoles for budget reasons. We were on the Jason Aldean tour, which was an MA2 programmed show. And in order to save space at front of house, I did not bring my own console for that tour. I just brought my USB stick and loaded into the tour into Jason Aldean's touring console, and that's how we did it in order to not have a stack of 3 consoles for all of the artists. And then moving forward, MA2 for me is a fantastic piece of software. I know it well, and until I'm as fast on MA3 as I can be on MA2, I'm not ready to trust it in the real world when it's just me and I have half an hour. So those are the reasons we're on MA2, but here we are. What we're going to do first is we're going to patch the show. I'm going to pull up a patch window here. And in my patch window, we're going to do these spot fixtures here. Again, organizing by layers. It works for everybody across the board. I do it a certain way. You guys can do it however makes sense for you. But I have a layer here that's house spots. And house spots is going to be what I build from. I'm going to kind of gloss through this because it's patching based on my show file or my console. If you happen to be on a different console, you're going to patch however you need to. But I'll just talk you through it as we go, so at least it's not just me sitting here in silence while we patch. I'm using the Camson standard mode. Spot 1 is the name I want. The number I'm putting on this truss is 12. Fixture ID is 101. That's what I use for my spot fixtures, is the 100 series. And now we're going to patch. I know that the first 3 are in Universe 1 address 1. The second 3 are in 2. Universe 3 is safe for the upstage LEDs. So we start again with 4 and 5. So that's patched out the show, or at least these spot fixtures. I've already done the patch with all of the other fixtures that we've got in this plot. Again, just to keep it brief, because we're not here to talk about Grand MA2. We're going to close, leave the patch, and everything is good to go here. So now, if we're doing this correctly and we pull up our show, if I pull up fixtures 101 through 112 and I highlight them, as you can see here in WYSIWYG, we've got them all built. And they're showing up in their highlighting. What I'm going to do now is as I cycle through to make sure I got the right numbers, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And does it go back to 1 like it's supposed to? Great. Okay, so I have a layout view here at the top of Grand MA. This is just for my house spots. I'm going to save that here. And I'm going to lay this out roughly the way it looks in the patch or in the plot. I'm not spacing out by, what fixtures are in the middle of it. I just want to see that I have 6 of these spots over top of 6 of these spots. I'm going to make the groups that I use for the show. That very simply, the first group is just called spots, and that for me is a symmetrical selection. If you've worked on Grand MA for any period of time, you know what a symmetrical selection is. I'm going to make a sweep, which for me is top down, left to right. Store that, clear out, and then make a left to right, top down. So now I have all the groups I need to make my show work. What we're going to do is very briefly jump into the cloning so that you guys can see what that is. If you haven't cloned a show before, cloning, there's a ton of resources, some of them mine, some of them from others, basically telling a set of fixtures to behave a certain way based on another set of fixtures. So we'll show you that real quick. I have pre-programmed the show with a very large rig. We saw that earlier on in this webinar of what my clone sources look like. And that is 3 trusses of 8 of everything I'm ever going to touch. Plus some stuff for the wings that you'll see underneath, like offstage IMAG LED walls on a festival, or if they have some lights they like to place on subwoofers, that's what those are for. And if there are side spots, which means for me anything that is hung on a truss that is effectively what I call vertical, so going from downstage to upstage instead of crossing left to right. Or if there's a bunch of wash fixtures they've placed on the sides on the floor so that we can have some very nice side wash, that's where I'm doing that at. I'm going to move this over here so that we can very quickly go through the clone. I'm going to clone based on this show here, which I know these fixtures, excuse me, are going to be cloning to these fixtures here. I'm making sure my counts are correct, so I went 6 across and 2 down for a show that is 6 across and 2 down. I'm going to prepare. I use no groups and no layouts, clone, merge. Awesome. So I've done that part of the show. I've cloned in all of my spots fixtures. As you're going to notice as a theme, I've already done that for the beams, the washes, the LEDs, the blinders, etc., etc. So now, if we look down here in WYSIWYG and I hit program, if I find my spots, they should go to correct positions, except they're going the opposite direction. This is something you deal with a lot over the course of a show, because sometimes the fixtures get hung in different positions. Sometimes they're not turned the way you think. So we're going to go ahead and correct for that as fast as we can here. In our patch only mode, I'm going to shift over. Let me pop this up so you guys can see a little better. There we go. We're up high. I'm going to grab these spots and I'm going to invert my DMX. I'm going to hit yes. And then you saw down here, they all kind of tilted out the right way. Now, if I go through and check my positions, we'll get this a little tighter so we can see. They're all pointing the ways they're supposed to. Wings in, pyramid, all my positions that I use day to day on my show are going to look correct. We're going to check the beams the same way. Mid. Yep, those are all pointing the direction they need to. So wings in. Fan, I always check something that has a fan or has pan information in it, because sometimes pan needs to be reversed. Sometimes there's a single fixture that needs to have it done because it has some control mode in the fixture menu they set it to inverting their tilt, 2 years ago for a corporate event and never changed it back. So we're going to very quickly look at all the other fixtures in the show the same way. Got my wash fixtures, mid, and fan. Those are all pointed the way they need to. Wings out, wings in. That looks good to me. And so now we've got the relative positions figured out. The relative positions this is what I'm talking about. My down at the band, is that down? My mid out at the audience, does that look like mid? My fan out position, does that look correct? Wings in, does that look right? These are the things I'm talking about. If you notice, this is my downstage center position. That is not even close, and I'm not worried about that because I know that that's one of those positions that I'm going to have to edit and update over the course of that half hour. That's kind of the one thing I can do. And if I can do it during that load-in time, if somebody's very kind from the headliner side and lets me have some time with the rig, I'll do it then because I can see it on the floor and I can get on the radio to a production manager, my tour manager, anybody who's available. I can sometimes be very nice to one of the house lighting crew folks, and they will stand in the right position so I can point lights in the right place. So we're going to do a double check on our front, which is also backwards, so I need to fix that. We're going to go into patch only live. Front. Tilt. Flip. That's now correct. This is another one of those I'm not going to be checking until that changeover time. A lot of festivals are in the middle of the day. The sun is shining, the sun is bright, and you're not going to be able to tell where those lights are pointed really until you get into your changeover. And then the band specials, same deal. I'm not going to know exactly where they are. I know they're pointed in roughly the right direction, which means that I'm not going to have to invert the tilts on them. So that's good there. So,
and that's kind of precisely what WYSIWYG allows you to do. It's to catch all of these, fixture hung in their incorrect orientation, or if there's any inversion that had happened on the fixture, and that's exactly what this process allows you to clarify and update.
Correct. So, like Nick just mentioned, WYSIWYG's library department is super good about making sure that fixtures point in the right direction based on where things are in the show. So that way I know that when I get on site, if the fixtures are hung in the standard way, which is usually with the cables pointed upstage and the screens, or what I call the window, facing downstage. That is kind of the norm for shows and for tours. But sometimes fixtures don't work quite that way. If you guys are at all familiar with working with Chauvet's Rogue series of fixtures, the R2 wash, the R3 wash, the R2 spot, they default to 90 degrees offset in their pan. I don't know why they decided to do this, but they did. So sometimes when you're hanging a Chauvet fixture, you'll need to give it what I call the Chauvet twist, which in your show, you can offset pan and tilt in your show. I will offset it that negative 90 degrees to make up for the fact that it's already turned 90 degrees off of what I think it ought to be. So that is where this stuff makes really, really good sense to have most of that done. That way, when you get on site, if, like we talked about, there's a single fixture or a couple of fixtures where they had to hang it funny to make it work in the show, they had to spin. They changed a thing in the mode, and the mode is only controlled in the fixture menu on the light, and you can't RDM. Anything like that where you may only have to turn one or two or none. That's what streamlines your time before you get there. So I'm spending all of the time working that stuff out now, so that when I'm at the show, I only have to deal with the things that are that rig specific, not necessarily those lights in those places, but like, who put this light on this truss? Which way did they hang the light to make it work on a truss cord, etc. So
exactly, and I also have a question here that's kind of related to this workflow as well.
shoot.
One of the questions was, now that you have created the WYSIWYG files and all the fixtures in place, is there a particular reason why you wouldn't export an MVR and import it into your console? Is there a preference, or is there a particular workflow that allows you to do all this?
Sure. So with WYSIWYG, you can, of course, export an MVR, and you could import that into your console. In my particular case, I don't believe the Grand MA2 supports MVRs, which is one of the reasons why they put out the Grand MA3. You can totally do that. You can save all this. You can export it using various tools so that you can save the save your patch as an XML document, and then re-import that into GrandMA. You can MVR it. You can do a lot of things in that way. The thing that makes sense for me is doing it manually, because sometimes things get mistaken when we're putting the show together. It's just easier for me to stay in this case, because I have a console and software, two platforms that I know I work well looking back and forth at. I know I can look at the patch and go, this is what we have patched. So then I'm not having to go, oh no, the MVR is different. Now what? For me, it's just simpler. There's a million ways to do all of these same things. That's kind of the beauty of lighting consoles and software like WYSIWYG. We're able to do a lot of different workflows. I'm showing you what makes sense to me. But yes, you can absolutely MVR your way in. And a lot of shows will give me an MVR. I have a show coming up this later next week, where I've been given a show file for a GrandMA 2, but no working, and no working anything else. Not a patch as we know it. It's just the MA2 show file that has a patch. Now with MA2, you can do something called a partial show read, where I can pull that patch in. I happen to be on the fence about liking PSRs. If it's an enormous show, then I absolutely will. But if you're using an organization system like layers, like I do in my patch, if you're not doing funky things, in my case, I have little placeholder fixtures. So I can kind of show here that each empty layer that I have has a single fixture patched as a placeholder. When you do a PSR, if there's an empty layer and then you do a partial show read, it immediately zeroes it out. So I try not to PSR whenever possible. I try and do it manually, only in that I am fast and efficient at this. I know what works for my workflow. I'm just patching fixtures is, drag, right click, patch, cool. Instead of go down to a layer, highlight what I need, change the fixture number, work out the conflict with that fixture number. Then it got messed up with this. Then I got to cut them. Then I got to cut those fixtures. Then go up into my correct layer and paste it. While these are effective methods, I'm just faster this way. And that's the reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah, so there's certainly different workflows, and MVR is definitely an option. But obviously, there's a level of comfort as well, that you're very efficient on the console side. So you find that workflow works for you personally. But yeah,
absolutely. One of the reasons why I haven't made the jump to GrandMA 3, for example, is that I am efficient at GrandMA 2. I know that I can get GrandMA 2 software working on any kind of hardware, whether it's GrandMA 2 or 3, aside from a couple of exceptions here and there. The goal for me is to have the most broad-based show possible, so that when I'm flying into a county fair in, somewhere Iowa or whatever, where they may not have access to GrandMA 2 fixtures. This could be a small upstart production company, and what they were able to source is a GrandMA 2. And if my show only works on GrandMA 3, well, I'm in bad shape. Now I got to source a GrandMA 3 or make them do it, which breaks their budget. And I don't want to do that to a production company. So that's where all that comes from. So we're going to do the next piece very briefly, which is looking at the gobos for the show. So I use gobos for a ton of my songs. And we're going to zoom in just a little bit and shift down and look down, because what I'm looking at is the floor of the stage. So I basically I don't use every gobo wheel in my fixtures. I want 3 or 4 that kind of get the point across. So something that's dots, something that's kind of circles, something that's kind of a swirl looking thing, and something that's general breakup. So we're going to look at our open tight, open medium, or open narrow, open medium, open wide. One of the things that WYSIWYG is wonderful for doing is showing these gobos on the floor. One of the things that no software has ever been good at, because it's not possible, is getting the focus of that exactly right. For a million reasons, that's not the case, because we don't know what fixture had gotten bumped in getting pushed out of the case, coming out of the box truck when they load in the show, and the optics are a little bit jostled. So what we're going to do is we're going to limit the amount of stuff we have to do. I know I need to get the gobos correct, and then I can focus the gobos when I'm on site. So we're going to look at the dots. I've got dots narrow, dots medium, and dots wide, and I know that works. So that way I know all I have to do is adjust the focus on those. Is the focus going to be correct? I've already done my zoom. The library department is awesome at making sure the zoom angles are correct. So I know that this is as narrow as I want that to be. So when I look at it in real life, that's going to be the right number or the right size for what I'm trying to get at. Then I've got something with circles, narrow, medium, wide, something that's a swirl pattern, narrow, medium, wide, and some kind of breakup. There's narrow, medium, and wide. If I need to adjust in my software, in my console, then I'll see it in WYSIWYG. But that is what I check for first and foremost. One of the other things that I do not check for is strobe. I make sure that it's on so that turning on the strobe is a thing, and I'm good. There's a lot of known weirdnesses with any kind of visual representation software and the graphics card you're using. So the strobe on WYSIWYG, when you're using an NVIDIA graphics card, is different sometimes than when you're using an AMD graphics card. And that is a factor of the graphics card itself. So we have to be ready to make changes for that. We can't do everything here, but we can compensate for all of that by doing as much work as we can do so that when we're on site in that half hour of fun, I don't have to do so much work. So now we've checked all the gobos, we've checked all the positions. I know that I'm pointed towards the front of my stage. And now we're going to get into the relative effects. If you're a one-to-one clone guy in Grand MA, you don't need to do anything with that because your effects are going to work. I try and keep it a little bit more interesting than that. For those of you familiar with Grand MA2, this is where macros make your life so much easier. So we're going to look at a particular song here to get the effects correct. Let me find one that's got quite a lot. There we go. So I'm going to update the effects of my show with one of my macros. I'm going to do something that I call randomizing. This is applying a certain selection order and certain randomizations to my effects. This is going to take about 20 seconds. So basically what it's doing, selecting a group of fixtures, ordering them in a specific way, and then storing them into every effect that that fixture is a part of. At some point, I'm happy to share that, but this isn't the forum for it. So now we've checked all of our, now I've done all the updating to my effects. So now I want to make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to. I'm going to pull up my wash fixtures, and we can see down here that they are randomly selecting between red and white. So I know that I've done that. That is correct. We're going to look at a dim effect. Is my dim effect doing what it's supposed to? Yes, kind of. There's blocks going on, so I'm going to remove those blocks. And there we go. I know that that's working the way it's supposed to. I've got an effect here that's a flyout effect. Does that flyout effect work the way I think it's supposed to? Yes. Is it the exact flyout that I did in my clone source file when I was building the show? No. That is the point of the relative effects. The numbers are a little different. So it's going to look just a little bit different than what I may have had exactly in my mind when I programmed it, because I don't get to control, as an artist who's going into pre-existing venues, which fixtures are up in the air and how many of those fixtures are up in the air. But is this doing the job that I want it to do? Is it flying out, doing the right effect, and is it conveying the same feeling that I needed it to when I was building the show? Yes. Cool. So we know that's correct. We're going to go through and double check on a number of these other ones. I have a random blinder dimmer effect going on. That is also correct. So I don't need to double check on any of those. We're going to look at the LEDs. Are the LEDs changing color the way I want them to? Yes. Are they when I put in a fast strobe, are they doing what they're supposed to? Yes. Are the beams doing what they're supposed to? I'm going to say no, because I'm going to bet there's a group on it. And that needs to be that way. So that is correct. We're going to look at a circle for the beams. Are they spinning around in a circle the way I expect them to? Yes. So now we know that we've completed the process, and I know everything's going to work the way I expect it to. To double check that, I'm going to actually fire off one of my songs. This is a song from Nate, which we're going to find. I'm going to fire a song called Whiskey on You, because that's got a lot of things going on. So I'm going to pull up the chorus for that. And are the effects going and doing what they're supposed to do? Yes. So now, as a part of my process, I'm going to go through and double check the tunes, make sure every song does what it's supposed to do when I want it to do things. Are things pointed in the right direction? Are they turning on? Are they making the right effects? That's how I know that I've completed my process, and I know that when I walk into the show, I can load up the file, and aside from the couple of things we mentioned where I may have to change the position of the pan tilt inversion of a fixture or correct for some kind of offset, the show is exactly what I need it to do. So in 99% of situations, I can plug this in, say go, let this begin our show. I don't even need to touch it. And if I have to make an adjustment on the fly during the first song, I can do that. If like something went wrong and we had a weather delay and they've cut our load-in time, they've cut our changeover time to 15 minutes and everybody's scrambling. You know, it happens more than many of us would like to admit. So we have to be able to adjust on the fly and get as much of this preparedness done as we can. Because, as we mentioned at the top of this, the more prepared you are, the better your show is going to look. So that kind of concludes my presentation and the demonstration of the show, or of my process. Again, there's so many different ways that so many different people can do the same thing. This is what works really well for me. And Nick, I want to hand it back. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post them here, and then we're always around. We're always available. There's always guys like me who are in all the forums and the greater online community of lighting guys. And if you have any specific WYSIWYG related questions, there's a wonderful support team over at Cast that is able to answer anything and everything. As Nick will tell you, there is no question that feels too basic. I have asked so many times, why don't we have this? Why isn't there this? Could we add this feature in? And I'll get an email 20 minutes later. Hey, did you know that feature's already in here and you just have to do this? Oh, great. It's a wonderful thing when everybody's working together. So
Absolutely. And Zakk is a big part of that community, and sharing your workflow with everyone, not only on this webinar, but also on Facebook Goods and other platforms as well. And I know we're going to potentially try and do a bit of a live stream with you as well next week, as you actually adapt one of your upcoming shows and share that workflow with everyone. So very much looking forward to it. You're a wealth of knowledge, and just a big thank you for sharing your experience and workflow here. I'm
absolutely,
being
happy to help.
cautious of time. Just one last question that someone dropped in here is about magics, as well as working with LED strips. So I know you have some LED strips in this show, but to my understanding, you program that on the MA, don't you?
Yes. Let's see if I can get my way into that for this. If I load up my ground LX package, this is the show file that I have. This is what my show file looks like most of the time, except for these guys, which are no longer in my show. So now if I pull up the live mode and let's pull up MA and go to that same chorus look. Yeah, I have a lot of LED fixtures going on. Let me fix a thing right fast because I know that this is going to drive me nuts.
But
Uh,
yeah, in this particular case, you program the LED strips via the console. But yes, you can certainly, most certainly do it through other applications like Magix. There is a native integration between Magix and WYSIWYG as well. So it's one of the devices that you can add. There is a little visualizer set up output process in Magix that you just have to install a driver and configure, and then you'll be able to directly connect to WYSIWYG for visualization. So you can certainly work with media servers as well as other programs to visualize everything that you need in your show.
awesome. Yeah, I'm unfortunately I'm not a Matrix user at all. I've never played with it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that. Thank goodness there are guys like Nick here. Just again, when we talked about the LED strips, I will mention um, there's a lot of wonderful tools. I used initially when I programmed the show, I used the LED tape wizard to build the LED strips that we're currently seeing operate. Then, as I went through my day, I needed to have a little bit more specific control over it, only because I was dealing with specific product from a company called Edgelight, and I reached out to the library team here and said, "Hey, can you guys put this in? Here are the specs of the fixture." Uh, Sometimes even as simple as like, "Hey, can you do fixture X, please?" And then the team over at Cast, with usually for me it's within 24 hours. I've never seen anything take a whole lot longer than that. Put everything in, all the different variations on the product that I'm using, and boom. Then I just changed over to what the actual import was, and now I have my show. Um, and that is a wonderful benefit of working with a team like the team over here at WYSIWYG, is that they're able to work on the fly and fast with something if you should need it. And so now I have very specific renders and models of my edge lights, which I made disappear because I'm a crazy person. There they are. So now I have a very specific model of what's going on here.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think in terms of time wise, we're gonna wrap it up here. Once again, a big thank you to Zakk and showing us your workflow and sharing your experience. Hopefully, much more to come. And thank you everyone for joining us online. And if you are going to LDI in person in Vegas later or next week, feel free to come check us out. We're booth 915 at LDI, and we'll have the latest WYSIWYG updates being demonstrated there as well, with some new features to check out. So don't forget to come check us out in person. Big thank you to Zakk, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any other questions. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.